We have with us Lieutenant General Tariq Khan, former Pakistan Army General, commander of 1 Corps at Mangla. Title of his speech would be Afghanistan, Another Perception.
Hello to everybody, and I don't know whether it's good evening or good afternoon or whatever, wherever we are. Michael, thank you very much for that, for what you said, and I agree with almost everything that you put across. But it's such a complicated subject that it's not that simple to put into words in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Where I'm coming from, I was involved in this right from the time of 2001 as a relatively mid-tier officer, a one-star general, and then I grew with the issue. I stayed in CENTCOM in Florida for 1 year with General Abizair, and I looked at it from that perspective too. And one of the issues that I see is, which everybody likes to point out, is about the misunderstandings and the lack of understanding and the trust that was missing between the United States and Pakistan, who was supposed to be the most allied in this. But let me tell you, it was a development of a perception. Pakistan is a country which is not that independent that it can have a foreign policy of its own, that it can have a financial policy of its own. I mean, it's dependent upon the IMF and the World Bank. It depends upon what the United States does to make a foreign policy. It cannot be independent of that. So, in a way, we have to follow suit. Now, what happened after the Soviets left was basically Saddam Hussein attacking Kuwait and the Berlin Wall going down, and the world had other priorities, and so we were stuck with a lot of things. And when 9/11 happened at that time, and we had the United Nations, resolution, I think 1378, in which we were part of it, and the world had unanimously signed that resolution, we decided to clear up our own areas. Now, there are three dimensions to how Pakistan's national interests kept changing or wavering, and that was essentially because of what is happening in Afghanistan. When the United States came in 9/11 into Afghanistan, it was in Pakistan's interest that America succeeds, stabilizes Afghanistan, and puts in a conventional government. And that is why Pakistan gave its bases, gave its logistic routes, and it was there to cooperate, and it was one of the most allied countries. But as time passed, this stabilization was nowhere in sight. It had become very obvious that it's not going to happen. Our national interest changed because it was in our interest that America vacates. By staying there, it was not achieving anything. And that is what Pakistan kept saying. But nobody was there to listen to it. And then the third dimension came when the United States brought in India, which you might have friendship with India and with Pakistan is fine, but India is an enemy state. And to bring it and put it in the backyard of Pakistan at this time was not acceptable to Pakistan. But having said that, that is not the reason why Pakistan was supporting the Afghan Taliban, and I don't think Pakistan needed to support the Afghan Taliban. At no stage did the Afghan Taliban have less than 40% of the rural areas of Afghanistan in their control. At no stage. They had access, they could go across at any time. And they were the drug trade, which was $2 billion, which was coming back to Afghanistan. I'm not talking about the overall revenue. I'm just talking about what was coming into Afghanistan was nothing less than $2 billion. This could not be controlled either. Now, when you have the space and you have the resources, what was Pakistan doing supporting you? And we have bent over backwards trying to make the fence, which has been against everybody's will. Even the Afghan government didn't want that will. But look at the situation in Afghanistan as such. You have a government in power, which is the only government in the history of the world which is being supported by an occupying power. It can't survive without it. And you have its ally, India, sitting out there also, which cannot survive without the Americans. And then we are always wondering what's going to happen. Well, this is what's going to happen. What happened? We kept on blaming the wrong people. We had a perception which was built up. That perception I've lived with. I've worked with General Petraeus. I've worked with General McChrystal. Hillary Clinton is on record. Mattis is on record. Chuck Hagel is on record for having said that we did not destabilize Afghanistan. But nobody likes to quote them, and they're the heavyweights. Everybody is quoting, Ted Barker and Hussein Haqqani and such kind of people, but no one's really quoting these people. And Mattis said this in India. Chuck Hagel was saying it very public. These are all public statements. So I'm not going into the blame game, etc. But I think there were certain issues out here, and because I have worked with all this and I saw all this happening in front of me, I saw a United States Army which kept rotating after every 1 year. I don't think the people were very clear about the terrain. They were not very clear about the people or the intelligence. They were very, very heavily dependent upon the intelligence that was provided by the Afghan Northern Alliance oriented intelligence. The Northern Alliance, and they see Pakistan through the Taliban eyes. And therefore, there was a certain influence which came in, and we became the bad guys in the end. And I don't think we had the influence, the capacity, or the capability to move the Taliban into a kind of a combat group, which was never picked up, regardless of what kind of intelligence there was never picked up crossing the border as a large group. And these small little bands of people went there and caused a strategic upset. It really challenges my professional understanding of how military operations are done. So, having said all this, why America has left now is because it had become into a unsustainable situation, and I think it was more of a political issue. America was never faced a tactical reverse at a single point. There was no military reverse that it really looked at, but it was not sustainable. With $2 trillion down the drain, some casualties mounting up, 20 years, etc. I can only make my guess that there was some kind of a fatigue, and it was time to leave. Now, I think when this movement started off, it would be very childish to think that Taliban would not assert themselves. They would, and they have asserted themselves, because the government sitting out there was never really a government, a unity government. I've never heard of this anywhere else in the world, where you take two opposing sides, put them together, one shares the police and the other shares the army. You put up an army and you take that army, it takes you 16 years to provide a lieutenant colonel or CO of a battalion. It took 4 years to put together 450,000 troops. How do we expect it to stand ground? And all that. So these are the kind of things. There are a number of mistakes that were made. The Americans had to leave, and it was very obvious that the Taliban would assert themselves. Yes, it is going to lead to a civil war. I think in the end, the Taliban will get the Afghan government. I'm not in favor of the Taliban style of governance, and that's not something I would want to do. But I'm just saying this is where it's going to go. Now, the effect it's going to have on the region. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we were very clear about it, and we went fencing. So we've gone for the fencing to cut off the border and control the refugee intake. The refugees we cannot control, we would like to organize rather than leave them disorganized as we had done last time. So these are some of the steps that we're taking. I don't think Pakistan has any capacity or capability of influencing or directing the Taliban in any way at all. We might have some people swaggering around the place, trying to make it look as if we have some leverage. We don't. Pakistan's leverage as far as international diplomacy is concerned vis-a-vis the West, where we could really portray some influence with the Taliban, is diminishing. We do not have that leverage. Our leverage is somewhere else. It's in other places which we should be exploiting, and we are not. As far as the rest of the region is concerned, the Central Asian republics are towards the north, and then you have Iran towards the west, and you have China towards the northeast. China has already signed with the Taliban a $3 billion contract for mining. So there is going to be a greater Chinese influence in Afghanistan. They will be in a position to look at this vacuum created there and probably do it with the soft power which China is more famous for. The thing which is actually far more worrying in the region is where United States leaves Afghanistan, so does India. The competing conflict between United States and China is basically the BRI and the CPEC. China has put together a consortium of the Trans-Pacific countries, which is about 27% of the world GDP. It is also connecting Africa through Asia to Europe, which is 2/3 of the world. I don't see America standing by and watching this happen without, giving a run for their money. Now, if this kind of a thing happens, I think it's in Pakistan's interest that America too is offered something similar as a CPEC and a route, and with their influence already in Afghanistan, to tie up with Central Asian republics, pipelines, electricity, energy, mining. This can all come into the play if we get away from the military conflict and start going into trade conflicts, which are much better, much healthier. It is a win-win for everybody. The CPEC is an outcome probably of what was said earlier about the South China Sea and the Malacca Straits. And the CPEC has one of the world's largest deep sea ports. It can handle more than 80 million tons of cargo, which is what Miami Long Beach does, the longest, biggest port in the world. So that's the potential it has in 2030. And this potential transfers it, makes it into a transshipment port, which affects the whole region. So that is one of the issues there. And Afghanistan can benefit most from this, being a landlocked country, being connected to the sea through Pakistan, being connected to the Central Asian republics, their minerals and resources like energy and gas, and which is already on the thing. So I think there is a future, provided there is some degree of stability. Now, how do we get the stability? Because everybody is looking at the stability. Do we leave Afghanistan to its own devices and hope it settles down? I think that probably would be the best solution, because Afghanistan is divided through an ethnicity. It's also divided through ideologies. The ethnicity is Turkmens, and then there are the Hazaras, and there are Tajiks, and there are the Pashtuns. The Pashtuns, of course, make the majority population. There's a disputed figure between 40% and 50%. I go along with 50%, and the rest make up the smaller groups that are there. Now, the regional countries there would like to actually reinforce the strengths of their particular groups, and that's where it becomes into an unstable country. So if everybody stays away from it and they work out their own problems, probably we are looking at, in the long term, maybe we are looking at a peaceful country. But Afghanistan has never really been peaceful right from the times of Nader Shah. It's always had some complicated thing. Here, it's a global matter where, in case Afghanistan, which is a fulcrum in the region, stabilizes, the connectivity of the region with the rest of the world becomes easier for trade and for everything else. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much. And I would have a question for you, sir, as well. As earlier, Michael, he mentioned that we should try to nurture cooperation, especially, America should take a step forward. And he agreed with this fact that Joe Biden hurriedly made a mistake, and he should have created or enhanced the cooperation. But what we see is his cooperation, it has enhanced, but it has only enhanced in our east. I mean, previously what we saw that America, it gave Chinooks, it gave Apaches to India, and now earlier this year, Predator Sea Guardians, they've been given to the Indians, especially when Lloyd Austin, he visited India, he gave it to the Indians. And I just wanted to know, do you not think, sir, that Biden administration, rather than trying to, keep things equal in the region, they have destabilized, or I must say, created an imbalance when it comes to American cooperation to one state in the region?
Yes, in a way you could say that. I would agree with Michael that there's no, you cannot modify a list of friends. You can make friends with everybody you want. My only thing would be that making friends at somebody's cost actually is where the conflict lies. As far as India is concerned, it's a much larger population. There is a much better relationship that it would have with the United States, and because of trade and other things. So I agree that America would, if given a choice, would lean on the Indian side. I think that's a perfectly natural thing to do. But if it leans on the Indian side in the sense that it affects Pakistan negatively related to the CPEC routes or to the disputed territories and kind of imbalanced influence developing into the region in certain areas, well, then Pakistan will have to respond in its own way to take safeguards more than anything else. So that's how it goes.
Thank you very much, sir.